Oh, we're hitting it anyway.
Recording live from the E. Haley Memorial Studios, straight out of Almont, Ontario, it's time for This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes, your one and only weekly Warmahordes news broadcast. It's 8 p.m. Wednesday night, the beers are cold, the news is fresh, and the death clock starts now. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Death Clock. Well, guys, it's been a few weeks of Mark III, and the errata has dropped, which is super exciting. So this week, what we decided to do is we brought up the one, the only, Bubba Dalton, King of the North, to lay down some wisdom, smack down some wisdom upon us. We don't have Bubba's little intro anymore. We used to have his little, we needed his little.
Oh, I think I can find that.
Oh, yeah. Maybe next time we bring Bubba on, we'll have his intro back for him. But so here's the deal. The errata, we did our special report on the errata as we usually do. Unfortunately, our usual guest, Sminoff John, was gone, but Greg Collinson decided to jump in, help us out with a little lay down some smackdown on the knowledge. But the reality is we only had about 10 minutes, and we sort of just did a quick rundown. So this is our opportunity to bring on people that know more than we do.
Not hard.
Which is not difficult. And the person this week is no other than Bubba. Hey, Bubba, how's it going out there in the T-Dot?
I'm nowhere near Toronto.
I mean, somewhere outside of there.
Because all places are either Almont or Toronto.
Well, yeah, there's only two places in all of Canada.
I'm like an hour and a half from Toronto, in the middle of nowhere.
Do you know my friend James in Vancouver? Have you met that
Yes.
guy? Yeah, okay,
yes.
Good.
Practically neighbors.
So how's the Dragon doing?
I was just there, played a game against Chris Orr. The Dragon's doing well. I'm good. Haven't been playing a ton of War Machine, unfortunately. I'm really busy in the summers. But you know, I like Mark III thus far. So
sweet. So how many games have you got in this point at this point?
Maybe 15.
All right, so you're equal with us then. Haha. We have a chance.
We got 15 games.
Two of those are tournaments. So.
We have a chance. We might be able to actually beat Bubba this time. We've got collectively as many games on our belts.
Well, yes, collectively.
Collectively.
We don't all get to play against him at the same time.
That's crap.
I'm down for that.
We're screwed. That was a gauntlet. That was a gauntlet laid down.
3 versus 1.
Oh, he'll take down all three moose
You know what I do with
machiners.
Mark III, man? 3 games at the same time.
3 days.
You know those people that play chess? Like,
Yeah.
play like 8 games of chess at once?
You gonna do the Bart thing? Checkmate.
So we did a tournament. We did a little micro tournament at our little pub where we do our local games a few weeks ago. Well, months ago now. And PG Semi-Automagic actually did that. Won a tournament while beating another dude.
I was playing a 75-point game, and then at the end of my turn, I would swing the chair over to the other side and play a battle box game while it was on my opponent's turn, and then I'd flip back and play the rest of my turn.
That must have been fun for your opponent.
Yeah.
What's the defense on that guy? Just a minute. I'm fucking doing another game.
I'm busy.
I'm busy.
All right, guys. First things first, let's talk a bit about the news for this week. We do know that the errata dropped this week. We'll talk a bit about sort of our opinions on the changes made. I think we all collectively agree that the changes were all pretty much expected. There was only a couple of little stunners in there, which was I think Charge was the only one that was a bit.
Well, most of the stuff in there was fixing the difference between engaged and melee.
Yeah, exactly. And they were all changes we kind of expected. Bubba, you've had a chance to look over the errata document now. What's your sort of overall impression, hit or miss? And was there anything that surprised you?
They cleaned up some of the stuff that was like, people were like, well, that's stupid. You know, like gang and assault and that kind of thing that kind of didn't make sense. And I'm surprised that the throw thing didn't get changed.
Yeah, that seems still super powerful.
It's super good. And they certainly could have toned down a few things that were stupidly good in the beginning. Like Sloan.
Yeah.
Hey, her feet
so
changed.
the opinion of the change of Sloane's feet. I don't know if you guys are spend any time on the Signar forums, but Trevi the Great, who has been on the show, is a good friend of ours, and awesome all around Signar player, has deemed Sloane useless trash now because of the feet change.
So,
how do you feel about it?
So when Trevi is playing Sloane at WTC this year, then everyone will know that he was just trolling you.
Yes.
Fair enough.
I as far as me as a Signar player who has been playing Sloane, I love this change because, see, I'm not really good at this game, and the change to her feet, while a little bit of a nerf for good players, makes it incredibly easier for me to actually, use her.
Yeah. Other than that, Maelstrom, you've had a chance to look over things. You didn't really get affected all that much, did you?
Well, I'm having a hard time believing they didn't fix that egregious error they made to Isla's site where you can't see through forests.
Where you can't just see everything?
Yeah,
You just thought
I just can't believe they haven't fixed the
you thought
typo
that-
yet. I
you
mean,
thought it would just
it
say,
was obviously
sorry,
a
just
typo.
put it back to the way it was in Mark II.
Yeah.
Legion is awesome. All hail Legion.
Yeah.
Right. No, they didn't do that.
Sigh.
I guess I'm going to have to learn how to play the game.
Yeah,
eh?
you're just going to have to learn.
That actually is one of the unintended Mark III problems for me as a PG, because normally you could say, okay, you don't want to play Convergence. It's a microfaction. It's complex.
Right.
Now, here is Legion. It's really easy because you don't have to do any of the rules. So let's get you started into Legion, and we can work.
This is
you
why
up
I'm
from
having
there.
such a hard time.
Yeah, I introduced you. I was like, here's Legion. You don't need to know
What's the
rules.
next easiest faction?
You want to get into Scorn?
I've heard bad things.
I'll sell you some Scorn. What do you want?
There was a lot of scorn.
I've seen
for
a lot
sale
of
out
scorn
there.
on. Yeah.
I have no idea what that's about.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the only other thing that came out this week, there's a couple of little things. We did see the sculpts for the Statixis Gunslingers are now out in the wild. We've seen what they look like.
I kind of love those.
Pretty sweet.
pretty.
They look kind of. They look pretty Black 13ish. I'm not gonna lie. It's like
They
they
do.
put like horned
do.
chick heads on the Black 13.
It's the year of the Gun Mage.
It is the year of the gun mage.
Did you guys already talk about the Tiberian resculpt? Was that this week or last week?
That was last week. We mentioned it, but
Oh, okay.
I love that.
I couldn't remember.
I love that
pretty.
model.
I only saw it for the first time like 2 days ago. So.
So nice.
So one of the good things that we didn't talk about too much on the special report this week is that PP has announced that because this errata is so close from everybody just buying those card decks, that they're not going to sell them in the packs that they originally promised. They're going to give those updates as free downloads that you can print, cut out, replace your cards.
Oh, that'll
Yeah.
be really nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Will they send me a printer too?
Yeah, that's the problem. I don't think any of us own a printer anymore. But then again, we all play off.
Yeah,
You can get them for like
Forum
$50.
anyway.
You're not going to need to buy another ink cartridge, which is the real expense. So
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
I guess
true.
that's true.
Yeah.
Now,
And there
take
was
it back
one
to
more
Staples
news
when you're done with
item. There was one more news item that you mentioned.
oh yeah. So in the latest podcast, the Privateer Press official podcast.
Podcast.
Yeah, the podcast that came out. They spoiled the fact that at Gen Con they're going to have all of the juniors as full warcasters.
Yeah, that's gonna be
now we
awesome.
knew that was coming
right.
at some point, but we didn't know it was going to hit
This
this
soon,
quickly.
yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yep.
For those of you going, but Legion didn't get a junior.
That's right.
It's Fiona the Lash.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I hope they do something to make her good.
Hey, I like Fiona, but what we're supposed to see is, I think, all the warcasters at Gen Con and maybe the warlocks at the next event. I'm not 100% sure on that, or whether they'll both be
Cool.
at the same time. My hope is that they do the same thing they do sometimes, and we'll be able to order them online.
That'd be
Yeah.
great.
That would be nice.
That would be really nice, because there's a lot of people. I have noticed a much lower War
It
Machine.
won't happen.
A lot lower War Machine output at Gen Con. Like, there's just not as many War Machine players or more to the point, War Machine players going to play War Machine.
Right.
Because
Right.
there's so much else at Gen Con that it's hard to justify it.
Well, there's some exciting things, but it was a slow news week after the errata, and I think these slow news weeks will continue for the next few weeks because I think we're still playing catch up.
Yeah,
With the
absolutely.
sheer volume that is Mark III. So we'll leave all that behind. It's time to get a little
Focus!
So for tonight's focus, what I thought we'd talk about is this is going to be a bit weird for the players that normally listen to the podcast, which are usually people that we play with and people that have been playing the game for a while. But I think it's important to sort of rewind ourselves and go back to when you and I first started this podcast, G, and talk a bit about some of the basics of the game, and especially things that have totally changed. And the very first thing that you do when you teach new players how to play is you play what you call a front of card game.
Yeah, basically what you do is in War Machine, at least traditionally, the back of the card has been where all the complex stuff is. So special interactions, interesting weapons, stuff like that. And though those are neat for those of us who know how to play the game, if you're just starting out, that's hideously complex.
Right.
It's not crap that you want to have to know. So what we do is we play with the cards sitting on the table. You never pick them up. And all the basic stats are on there. So you learn how to move, how to shoot, ranges on weapons and ranges on melee and all that kind of great stuff.
Right. So what we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to talk about what's on the front of the card. We'll run through it, and what we'll get Bubba to do is jump in with any sort of interesting tactics or tidbits along the way, as well as we're going to talk about some of the symbols that are on the front of those cards that confuse the hell out of us older players. And we'll talk about what each one of those symbols is as fast as we can. We're not going to go into huge detail because some of those things can get redonkulously complicated.
And there's a lot of them.
So the first thing when you look at the front of the card is you're going to see the faction symbol, and that's pretty simple. The whole card itself is going to be in a all-around color for the faction, a printout for the faction. So let's say for Signar, for example, you'll notice it looks kind of like lightning bolts, and it's kind of bluish, and that's should cue you immediately that is a card for your faction. And then you'll see your faction symbol. It's up in the upper left-hand corner. That's not that complicated. That's just quick visual cues. When you move down, this is the first sort of thing that gets complicated, especially for us older players who never dealt with this before. They've added a version code. Maelstrom, what is that version code for?
I believe it's for the version of the mark that we're in, is it not?
It's the version of the card
Right.
is what we're seeing. Because before several casters, I believe it was Gatsby 2, went through something like 6 iterations in Mark
Really?
2.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you bought a blister that had been sitting on a shelf, you pull it out and you go to game night and you activate the feat and it doesn't do anything like it says on the card.
Okay.
Yeah. So so the first thing we want you to look at when you're playing games, particularly let's say it's 6 years from now, just before Mark IV.
Why are you still listening to this podcast?
And why the hell are you listening to this particular podcast? Let's say
Maybe they're going back through the archive.
Maybe they're just huge fans because we become world famous. We're like rock stars now. Bubba introduces us at shows and events, and Bubba's I think he's checking out where his Pokemon are right
We're
now.
playing Candy
No.
Crush.
I'm just kidding. So if you're listening to this years from now, take a look at your version code and make sure it's up to date, because that could be important. You could be using a card that's gone through an errata. So that's what the version code is. Next, we have the name and version of character, and this is new. So,
Yeah, because before it just said so-and-so, so say Haley, and then underneath it would say Epic Warcaster or Signarin Warcaster or something like that.
Yeah.
Now they specify which Haley it is, and they're just numbering them. There's no such thing as Epic anymore.
Right. So again, that's important. So that actually, because we used to all use different words for these characters a lot of time, like Threely and Nemo 3, and people wouldn't know what you were talking about. Now you can just say Nemo 3 because it's actually on the card, or Nemo 2 or Nemo 1. That's a pretty simple thing. The stat line is where things start to get a little bit more complex. So that's the basics, other than for new players who may not understand. But the stat line is where we start to get into the nitty gritty of what the stats are. I'm going to throw this out to Bubba. Bubba, can you give us a quick rundown of the stats and what they do?
Oh, absolutely. So the first stat is SPD for speed. It's the number of inches a model can move with their standard advance. So not running, not charging, just their standard advance. It'll be somewhere between 4 and 9, or I guess it could be 2.
Unless you're an Eridus Sentinel.
Yeah, it's the lowest is 2 on artillery. So that's your general speed. Next is your strength, which has to do with how hard you can hit in melee. It also is important for throws with warjacks and warbeasts. All about half the distance you can throw something. It's also good for certain power attacks. That's really all it's for. And then you add it to your power of your weapon in melee. Next is Mat, your melee attack ability. So the number you add to dice when you're trying to make a melee attack. The dice plus whatever it is, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Next is your Rat, which is the same thing but for ranged attacks. Your ability to shoot something at range. Next is your Defense. The number your opponent needs to match with an attack roll to hit you. So it's something like a 10 is really bad, like a Kador Jack. Something like a 17 is really good on Kane, because screw Kane. And then next is your armor. The number that your opponent must exceed with their damage to do any damage at all, whether it's exceeding it by 1 or 20. And then next is command, which is important for units, as they need to stay in command to do certain things, and for anyone that has a command ability, whether it be a solo that has the leader ability, a warcaster could have a command ability like a Rusk 2. Anything in his command gets tough, and commands can vary wildly, and sometimes they just don't matter at all. It's the stat on the card that you need to look at the least.
That's perfect. I think that gives us kind of all the basics that we need. I'm going to throw this over to G for the next one. Let's do a quick rundown of some of these symbols, particularly the ones that are new and have changed. So underneath the stat line, you're going to see a series of symbols. And you'll see a bunch of symbols again underneath some of the weapons. But the confusion with those symbols is there's no quick reference. It's either in your book or you could buy, say, a coaster that had all of them on it if you knew the right place to where a bunch of assholes break copyright all the time. So, G, run down through what those symbols are and what they mean.
Well, there's a lot of symbols now. It used to be a lot of these were back of the card rules. And what they did is they sort of went through, and if, say, more than about 6 or 7 models had a certain wording on the back of the card, and it was just that wording, it wasn't as part of something else, they're like, yeah, that should be a symbol. So just to do a quick set of things that weren't symbols before, things like amphibious, assault, cavalry, a lot of those type of things that in the past weren't symbols. Flight.
Those used to all be back of the card.
Yeah, those were all back of the card
Soulless.
things.
Soulless,
yeah,
right.
soulless.
Solus is the one that people always are like, Bubba, what the hell is this?
What's
Yeah.
the ninja star?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
It
know.
should be something cooler. It should be
Yeah.
like, this has ninja stars.
Yeah, that would. I think
Not-
that's better
not
than
no soul.
soulless.
It should just have like a ghost with an X through it. Might have been a little bit better or something. I don't
Something
know.
like that. But the other ones
My
that
ex.
were there before that are relatively important that you will probably see. Advanced deployment, which is an arrow pointing forward, just means that you get that extra distance on deployment. Jack Marshall, you'll sometimes see,
Yep.
which allows you to control a jack. And the big important one, stealth and undead. Stealth is a model that is when it's the target of a ranged attack. If you're more than 5 inches away,
Yeah.
it's automatically a miss.
I would say is equally important with those two is Pathfinder as well.
Yeah, well, both Pathfinder and Parry
Yeah.
are quite important
Yeah, just because they let you do so much within the game.
and tough.
Right.
Though it's gotten less wonderful in Mark III, it's still a really good ability.
There's a surprising amount of people too that don't know what the tough symbol is because it's nails.
It's crossed nails
It's
because
crossed
it's
nails.
tough as nails.
Tough as
Yeah.
nails. Yeah.
So, I mean, those are the symbols. The symbols are pretty simple. The melee and ranged weapon stat line are the next two things down. They too have a series of symbols. Those will be bonuses that your weapon has. Go look them up in your book. We're not going to go through each and every one. It would just take us all night. But let's talk about what they melee and ranged weapon stat line says. Particularly, there's a change in the way melee weapons work because they now have a range stat.
Yeah, before they were just either regular distance or reach, and reach was actually a symbol.
Right. Bubba, one of the biggest changes in the game really is that large critters have a standardized reach now compared to the way that we used to.
Standardized range.
Sorry, a standardized range on their weapon. How do you feel about that as a change in the game itself? Is that helping, hindering? Is it just make sense?
First and foremost, I think the change from taking away things like reach and instituting a range for a melee weapon has both cleared up confusion for newer players and some veteran players alike. It just says right there what the range of your weapon is. Two, I think it's a really good change because it opens up a variety of options because now there's 3 melee ranges. And I think it's thus far been a good change. It's the Warjacks and Warbeasts having, on a large base, having no less than a 1-inch melee is really, really good. I've had multiple situations where I'm like, oh, I have 1-inch melee now on my Juggernaut. This is super sweet. So I've had nothing but, it hasn't been a detriment at all.
Excellent.
It's been nothing but good.
Well, and so anybody that doesn't understand what that is, just for somebody who might be listening to this later on, what that range is the amount of distance you have to be able to do damage from base to base. 2 inches, you can be able to, you're capable of attacking your opponent, is to simply describe it. So if you have a 2-inch melee range on your weapon, that means from base to 2 inches, you'll be able to attack your opponent. This is different when it comes to range weapons because you actually have a minimum range. Once you're engaged, you can no longer shoot your opponent. So
unless you have a special rule.
Unless you have Gunfighter, which allows you to do it. Range weapons work much the same. Once again, you have a range stat. You have the power of the weapon. And that's kind of, and whether you have it's an AoE or not, that's kind of how it works. All right, so moving right along into the focus and fury stat. So if you are a warcaster, you have a focus or a fury stat, and if you're a beast, you have a fury stat.
No, you do not.
Sorry, you have a
threshold.
You have a threshold's different.
You have fury and threshold.
They have fury and
max fury.
You have a
and
fury
threshold.
stat, but this is where the confusion comes from.
And
exactly,
we should actually point this out. It is on your card under your portrait.
Yeah,
because it's one of the things I get asked a lot when I'm demoing a game. So where is my fury? Because they look at the stat block where you would expect to find it, and it's not there.
Right. So, and the focus in the fury stat is basically for your caster. It's the for a warcaster, it's the amount you get at the beginning of each of your rounds during your upkeep. No, damn it, I can never remember the name of the phases. When you get all your stuff, your maintenance. Damn it, control phase. There we go. That's where you get your big allotment of your focus. With a warcaster, it's the maximum amount you can pull off of your beast at any given time during your control phase. And on a beast, on the other hand, that is the maximum you can have on your beast, which is different. You got
the maximum amount you can force
generate,
it to.
Yeah, you can force the beast up to. And that's where the confusion comes from, because like, oh sweet, well but I have fury on my beast too, so he must be able to cast some spells and stuff. But it actually works reversed, and that's where a bit of confusion comes from. We'll go into greater detail about that in a future podcast, because that's where things get kind of confusing.
One thing to mention is that on the beast, that threshold thing we were talking about is a smaller one just to the right of it.
We're just about to talk about the threshold.
Ooh,
it's
nice.
the next topic, in fact. And I'm going to send this one out to Bubba because I like to make sure that we pass around, and I did the last. So, yeah. Bubba, what is threshold and how does it work?
Threshold is the risk management system put in place into hordes so that beasts aren't just way better than warjacks in every single way, even though they still are. That's actually not true. Warjacks, that close the gap a lot with power up. So threshold is the number you must roll on at the start of your turn if your beast has 1 or more fury still on them. And then the number of fury you have is subtracted from that value. So let's use the value of 8. So if you have a threshold of 8 and your beast, your warlock cannot pull back all the fury you had on it, and you had 1 left on it, so you must make a threshold check. And if your number is 8 and you have 1 fury, then you must roll a 7, because the fury lowers your threshold. So you must roll a 7 or less. If you roll a 7 or less, nothing happens. your beast is able to activate normally next turn. If you roll an 8 or more, your beast frenzies. There's a breakdown of it must attack the closest model, and there's a breakdown of how that works based on if it's engaging something, if it's being engaged by something, friendly models, enemy models, blah blah blah.
And all that actually doesn't matter now. It's just charge's closest thing.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, charge's closest thing
I
and
don't
gets
know.
the benefits of a charge.
I don't think
against
I've had
closest.
something frenzy against me yet.
Yeah, so a frenzied, just to put it out there, a frenzied beast now shakes all effects that might be on it.
Yep.
Then it charges the closest thing that's in its line of sight.
Mm-hmm.
If it moves more than the 3 inches, then it
gets its boost.
It gets the boost. So
Sweet.
it literally just shakes anything that might stop it from being horrible to you, and then charges the closest thing.
I should read rules. Anyway, so frenzying is generally after your beast has killed something important. You're like, I don't care if it frenzies, it killed something important. Or if you screw up and then it frenzies and then you're sad because then it can't do anything.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's
if-
a big
It's
one.
not nearly as efficient or effective.
If my beast passed that frenzy check, I needed to roll, say, a 9. I rolled a 6. I had 2 fury or whatever on my beast. Does that beast keep that fury on them, or does it disappear?
It sure does.
Yeah,
It
it's
you
stuck on
must,
there.
if you
Yeah.
pass your fury frenzy check, you must leave the fury on the beast.
Which
So your beast activates, but it can't do as much.
yeah,
as
it
its-
limits the beast. It keeps that sort of whole thing in play. Okay, so moving right along, the last thing that we're going to look at is the damage boxes. Damage boxes on a normal thing. You'll notice on most of the new cards now that they put damage boxes for the maximum field allotment. That isn't always the case. So say if you have a 5-unit cavalry, for example, it'll just have the 5 boxes on it, even if the FA is 3, let's say, off the top of my head. However, if the field allowance is 3, you'll notice sometimes there are 3 blocks of damage boxes.
Yeah,
not,
especially for solos.
yeah, not to be confused with getting, I get 3 because there's 3 blocks of
Yeah.
damage boxes. No, it's still a solo. You still only get 1. But the next thing about that, the damage boxes are relatively simple. If they get over your armor, you take damage. But where it gets complicated is when we look at aspects and jack systems. We're just going to talk about that really quickly because we could do a whole podcast on how aspects and jack systems work. But basically, we'll go to PG Semi-Auto Magic. If somebody is doing damage to a beast or a warjack, how do you resolve that damage on the front of the card?
Well, it's relatively simple. Once you've actually determined how much damage there's going to be, you're going to roll an extra d6. You'll often see players rolling this along with the rest of their damage with a different colored die. And that's going to give you either the life spiral or the column that the jack is going to take the damage in.
Right.
So if you say roll a 3, you'd count over to the 3rd column from the left, and that's where you'd start marking damage, working from the top of the grid to the bottom. When you fill up the entire one, you'll move on to the next one. So from 3 to 4, or if you hit the far end, from 6 back to 1.
Right.
Now, if you're doing spirals, one thing that throws a lot of people when they're starting off is that spirals are actually branching. So when you're marking from the outside in, you'll mark all the way to the center, even if it combines with another branch. And then when you move to the next branch over, you'll often find that you're only filling in 4 or 5 boxes before it matches in with the rest of the spiral. And that usually shows that the beast has a little bit less health. But don't be confused. Just go all the way to the center and then move to the next number.
The next thing that people get confused about is there are the 3 aspects. Once you've knocked out taken all the boxes out of the aspect, it is now knocked out unless you have some way to, say, regenerate it. And with with warjacks, you'll see that there's letters in those boxes.
Mm-hmm.
If you take out all of the same letters, so let's say C, which is cortex, that means that system is knocked out. We'll talk about systems in a later podcast because I want to move along to the round table now. But basically, that means that thing is knocked out and there's negative impact on the game. And you can look at the quick reference to find out what those negative impacts are because there's about 7 of them. So moving right along, gentlemen, let's talk about the roundtable topic for tonight. We've done front of the card, which is the basics. Now we're going to get into something that's a little bit more complicated, which is state of the game. We've said we were going to talk about state of the game for a while now. We've had a few weeks. Bubba's got his 15 games in. I think we collectively have got maybe 20 or 30 games in between us
between
all.
all three of us.
Probably. Yeah.
The state of a game is an important conversation to have, and I'd like to do it every 6 or 7 months to sort of decide where things are moving, find out what the meta is doing, and particularly after an errata drops, because we knew watching what was happening already that lists were starting to form, particularly the Hunter Sloan list was just a prime example of it. I want to say Madrak is another list that's sort of coming out on top. But let's start right at the top. We talked a bit with Bubba about whether the errata has fixed some of our issues. I want to go to you, to PG Semi-Automatic. Do you feel like the errata has fixed the issues that you had with the game state?
I really didn't have a lot of issues with the game state, but I think a lot of the things in there were clarity problems. And to be brutally honest, just people screwed up when they were typing things in. The obvious problem of engaged versus melee ranges, I think that was a last minute copy paste problem. I think they literally, it was, we need to change this to engaged, not melee, and it got applied to a larger portion of the document than it was supposed to. That's just a gut feeling, because it seemed to be the same problem all the way through.
Right.
And I think there were a bunch of little interactions, especially most of them in less played things, that made them really janky. And I think those were fixed. Now, there are, of course...
Oh, we're going to find new ones. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, and there were a few obvious ones, like Sloan,
right.
where it was obvious that even with the little external playtesting that happened, there were people that were good enough to break that open.
Yeah, right.
One thing that I think is slightly problematic when you're doing a game of this size with the size of crew that Privateer Press has is that it's actually a problem that video games have a lot. And Riot actually fixed this in an interesting way, is that the people making the game spend all their time making the game and not playing it. So they don't think of all the horrible, janky ways to play the game.
Right. You need to have breakers.
Yeah.
around.
So if these guys, they're writing the game, they're literally testing it for years, but they are all so enmeshed in the game and
right.
the logic of the game and the lore of the game that they're like, yeah, nobody would ever play it that way. That's just stupid. But
you don't even do that in the front of your mind. You do it in the back of your mind.
And then the first time it gets out in the world, it gets
people
broken.
break it.
The way you fix that, and it's an unfortunate thing, is that you have to hire somebody to break your game,
or send it, or let it out in the world and let people break it.
Yeah.
So, Bubba, I want to send this out to you. Is there still stuff in the game right now that you're worried about after this errata? Do you feel like they've fixed everything, or is there still some stuff out there that is pure ridiculousness?
So, personally, obviously, I have worries about facing certain things, but that currently they're probably unfounded because I haven't seen them enough yet. And I still think that we're too early to make those judgments. I've played against Sloan once. It was fine. It was like a 16-turn game. He didn't kill my caster. It was hilarious. But so she's really good. She probably has answers. I don't know if she's broken. I haven't seen enough. At the War Machine Weekend qualifier we went to the other weekend, Sloan didn't win.
Right.
So, wasn't even top 4.
And
Sloan didn't make day 2.
That's generally a good sort of implication when we start seeing these bigger tournaments start to roll through, and we see, yes, there's good players versus good casters, but if we start seeing consistency in certain casters winning, that's generally a good judgment.
I think it's going to shake down like it did in Mark II. There's, certain things are going to rise to the top and certain things are going to fall to the bottom, and a bunch of stuff's going to be in the middle. But it's all about who plays it and how they use it and the synergies they can come up with. So I still think it's going to take, I've been saying to people, anywhere between 6 months to maybe even a year.
Yeah, I agree.
For things to really, really shake down. And I think that's why the errata wasn't so sweeping, all these sweeping changes. It was just a lot of clerical fixes and typo fixes and that kind of thing, because they don't want to go crazy just yet. as much as people are clamoring for it.
Well, I think there's certain factions that are clamoring for it, but we also, one of the things I want to remind the listeners is that we're also waiting for tiers to come out. And that's going to change the game as well. When we finally get those tier lists, and we have had some hints at what they look like. The first leak of a tier list was put out today, and PG Semi-Automagic will give you some of the rundown, and that's a Merc list. Those tier lists are going to change the game as well, and PP knows that those tier lists are coming, so that they don't want to make sweeping changes that'll then make those tiers too powerful or gimp the crap out of them. That's part of this whole balancing act that we're all playing right now, and I think that I want to reiterate what Bubba's saying is pull back, relax. We still got another 6 months to go. And we still haven't seen these tier lists, so there's still a long way before you can decide whether your faction or your favorite caster or your favorite jank is unplayable trash.
Yeah, wait until after WTC and after War Machine Weekend. Everyone's going to see all those lists that all the quote top players play, because then people will net deck them and copy them, and that's when things will really get hashed out. So probably start of 2017. We'll really start seeing things.
So
as they're going to go forward.
So we've got this first tier list, and it's crazy weird. It's not like a normal. It's not like play all of these. This is like specific, very model specific.
Yeah, well, I think this is the way new tier lists are going to be. They're going to be themed around a thing, and unlike before, where it was just meet this requirement, do this thing, and then you had to do thing 1 before 2, 2 before 3. We now just have sort of a list of calls and responses. If you do this, you get this, no matter which one's in which order.
So this one is specifically labeled the King. I can't remember, like the King
I don't
Killers
have
or
the
something
name of
along
it.
those
Yeah,
lines.
but
It's called what now?
King Killer, I believe.
Or yeah,
Or King's Killer.
King.
Well,
it's
that's-
something to do with throwing over the king.
No one can ever play that against me.
So the models that you can use are Bart, Damiano, McBain, and any of the Magnuses. You can use non-character mercenary warjacks, steelhead model units, crows cutthroats, Boom Howler and Co., Kel Baylock, Madeline Corbeau, Orin Midwinter, Dirty Mag, and Relic Moorclaw.
So super specific.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not like it used to be where it's you can use mercenary solos.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
the way it used to be.
So, and what are the special rules? So each one of these new tier benefits is going to give you 4 benefits, and you get all of them.
Yeah, you just
There's
get
some qualifiers, like
some
you
are
need 30
qualifiers.
points of whatever. But
Yeah, but basically you take this army gets Signar Long Gunners and Trenchers.
So right. So if you
They're
take this, you
considered to
get.
be Now here's really
So I need my
interesting.
long gunners back,
Yeah.
and
You can have them. It's okay. I play
oh come
Signar.
on, they're beautiful.
Now here's the big thing. They're considered to be friendly mercenary units instead of Signar, and they can include their attachments.
That's awesome.
The big thing is that friendly faction is now the norm. So having this theme force make
Right.
them friendly faction is amazing. So, and for every 20 full points of units in this army, you can add 1 solo to the army for free of cost. Now let's take a look here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possible solos.
Right, but you're only going to take a maximum of 3, so you could get 3 possible solos out of those 5 for free.
Well, you could get
You
all
could
5.
take all of them, but
But if you take 5 units,
Yeah,
what
that-
if you do 5 min units?
No, because you have to have 20.
you
It's
still have
just
to,
full
it's
20 points.
Oh, it's
you
for
can
every
the
20
most you could
points.
get.
Yeah.
So
But like, if you're playing Damiano wants lots of dudes.
Yep. And you
So like, that's what, 12 free points,
Yep, about that.
give or take, right?
and here's the cool thing is that they're giving warrior models feign death.
Yeah.
All warrior units feign death. And
It's
feign-
actually insane.
But it's
Yeah.
actually pretty amazeballs, especially since guys like Gregor, the Boom Howlers, love that kind of thing because if they tough now, they're just
Yeah.
unhittable.
Well, yeah.
Does it say it's just like base, right? It doesn't sound like command or anything.
model units in the army gain
Ugh.
vain death.
Because of the farther down ability is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And now Gregor Boomhowler and Co. gain ambush. So ambushing boom howlers that as soon as you shoot the first time and they go down, you can't shoot them again.
That's
Till they
nasty.
stand up and run at your face.
That is
Pure
nasty.
awesome.
Ambushing, feigned death, dead-eyed boom howlers seem like a thing.
All right. So
they're super good under Damiano's feet when they're friendly faction too.
So yeah. Tier lists, they'll be a thing.
Yeah.
Hold on, breathe, Scorn players. I bet you there's some good tiers coming out for you.
Other
So
than the ones they've already been shedding.
okay, so here's the thing: we've seen a lot of errata come and go, and we're actually not seeing that many people angry at this errata. We've seen way more anger in past erratas, but it's because this errata is really mainly a grammatical fix more than anything else, and a couple of minor tweaks that needed to be put in the game just to clean some stuff up. But I thought what we'd talk about is, Bubba, how do you ingest errata? Like when you look at errata, how do you stop yourself from just like, oh, you've invalidated all my models and this game sucks now? How do you look at it and sort of soak it up and keep going forward?
So I have 2 points. One, I don't look at erratas. Chris Orr tells me what's in the errata and then tells me what to think about it.
Chris, start lying to him quickly.
I'm a terrible theory player and like a terrible like putting the pieces together. I'm a really good like when I'm playing the game player. Not a good thinker in terms of War Machine. So I have issues there. But so for me, as someone who used to play EE, and when they nerfed it, I was like, you ask anyone, I was just like, okay, it's a good thing. Like, I played the list and fully admitted to people that it was egregious, but it was funny for a while. So I'm very nonchalant about it. It sucks. I get that people are upset about, especially when it invalidates a bunch of stuff they bought. But if you're not aware, the reason it got nerfed is because it's a problem and because it's egregious and too good 99% of the time. So if you're upset about that, then maybe you need to have a little look at why you play the game, or I'm not going to say tone it down or anything, but
No, I mean, I think
we're just all here to have fun, and if something's getting nerfed, it's because it's probably too good.
No, well, that's it.
And it's ruining the game.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't
Like
think
EE.
Yeah, you don't have to go. I mean, I think you've definitely hit the nail on the head. For example, it was the same transition when you go from Mark II to Mark III, and you have a favorite caster with a favorite trick that you loved. Veil 2, for example.
I'm still salty about losing D-Cell.
It's okay, Maelstrom. I'm sure you'll figure something out down the road.
I just miss
Is
Refuge
he salty
so
about
much.
Veil 2?
I just miss Refuge so much.
He just misses it.
Right? You know that on top of one, you can launch spells 2 inches in a deployment zone,
Yeah,
right?
I was reading that. Yeah,
He hasn't.
It's
He just,
disgusting.
it'll take.
Did you just say yeah?
Oh yeah, I was
we're-
reading it.
We're not telling him.
Kick him out right now. I lost refuge, but
I
now
can't see through
but now I
forest.
can launch spells 2 inches in your deployment zone.
I can only
and
top of
mathematically,
one you.
mathematically, I have a 30% chance of assassinating your caster.
I can only top of one you now.
Yeah. Oh.
30% chance of killing most casters. Like,
Muffin.
Legion Tears. Womp,
And that's
womp.
just top of one. So you do that, and then you still get to do all the rest of the stuff in the game. It's not like
Oh yeah, I'm
Right?
not.
It's like I just have a 30% chance to kill you, and then we'll play our game.
The reason is because I played 50 games in a row with her. I got used to that spell list, and
Yeah,
now I'm not used to it anymore.
you'll get
So,
there. You'll get there.
I'm not upset. I'm not upset.
I'm not upset. Shut up, you guys.
No, I'm actually looking forward to
Legion is
learning
unplayable
other stuff.
trash. So now that the lists haven't, I think I was going to ask the question of now that the lists are starting to shake out, what should we worry about? But I think we've already kind of talked about that, and the lists haven't shaken out yet. Bubba, have you?
I think there's things to be worried about.
What are the things? So you're sort of sitting more in the upper echelons of the tournament players. What are the things that we need to worry about right now? The factions and the casters that we need to kind of be aware of.
So factions, it's probably Legion, Kador, Signar, Mercs.
Yeah, those are scary.
What's
Menoth is close. I think people still need to hash out some lists with them, but I think they have the ability. Everything else is kind of a step below that. Oh, and Circle's one caster.
Yeah.
So not for any personal interest, but what is the mercs that we need to worry about?
Ostrom.
Yep.
So
Damn
Ostrom,
dwarfs.
Ostrom, Earthbreaker, 6 Gunners, 2 Blasters, and then there's some solos in there. I've played that list a couple times. It's amazing. You could
So-
also just play 17 Gun Bunnies, and it's also funny.
Yeah. I
It
was
doesn't
waiting.
quite hit as hard as the other list with the Earthbreaker, but like, it's so strong.
Yeah, I was waiting until after the errata drop to start buying my gun bunnies because, you know,
You're a
I
little
kind of
scared.
thought that might be
He
fixed.
doesn't even play mercs.
Yeah.
The
I
jerk.
have
he just,
a dwarf.
he just
I have
owns
3
one
gun bunnies.
dwarf.
I have 3 gun bunnies. That's
I only need 14
Well, I'll-
So,
I'll-
more.
and
only 10
and then
more.
in those factions that I mentioned, it's not like right now anyway. I'm not feeling like every faction. It's like, oh, like Crix would be like back in Mark II is like, well, I have like Crix has 6 casters that they could bring that'll just like stomp you. Like Legion has Lilith 3, and Veil 2 is pretty good, and like Fags is pretty good, and Abbey 2 is pretty good, but Lilith 3's Chris Orr said today is like Lilith 3 is kind of propping up the faction. And they're really like she is really scary.
Coincidentally, I just bought
She's
Lilith
actually
3.
just straight terrifying.
I
She has
know.
a
I shot her
she has
off
a
the table.
28-inch threat.
Yeah.
Yeah, just don't drop her into Sloan
Yeah.
and then not be able to move far enough away. That was funny.
What do you mean drop her into Sloan? She has wind wall.
Yeah.
True
Yeah.
sight.
How do hunters shoot her?
No, it's not the hunters. It's Sloan herself. 3 magic weapons, boosted magic weapon, weapon
How
masters
does
into her
she have?
face.
How does she have? Oh, because she's ready to fire 2 and then 1 from the feet.
Yep. No, rate of fire 1 from Reinhold, 1 from the feet.
Reinhold's dead.
Yeah, if you've done your job right.
Like 28-inch threat. Reinhold dies.
He should.
You just kills. She just kills Sloan. Is what she does. She's just like she out threats Sloan by a country mile.
Yeah, she totally should.
Anyway, she's terrifying. I've seen her on the table a few times, and I'm just like, I don't want to play that. That's gross. But the rest of the factions kind of same with Circle, like Wormwood.
Oh, Wormwood.
Remember how everyone laughed at Wormwood in Mark II?
Yeah, now we all wish we owned him.
Yeah.
He is insane.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping that Wormwood 2 gets a new caster buddy, just so that we have like a different take on that model now.
Oh yeah. I don't know. It might be one of those ones that just kind of never gets a second iteration.
Yeah.
He and like the good thing about him is he has very few hard counters, like Siege and a Rusk 2.
Yeah, that's about it.
Sevi 2, because awareness. But like, man, it's good. It's so good. And then Kador has a Rusk 2, is so strong right now. I joked a few months ago with Chris Orr. I was like, you know what Kador needs? It'd be really good. Solid ground. And then he's like, get the fuck out of my house right now. And I'm like, why? Like, it'd be good. It wouldn't be a problem. He's like, no, that'd be stupid. And then they got it. And it's stupid. I've played it a few times. It's dumb. It's way too good with him.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've learned that I'm now in the market for gun bunnies and
Oh, so
an
good.
Earthbreaker.
So many gun bunnies.
But I think they might be sold out everywhere after this particular cast, at least in our local area. So I guess the next thing that we'll talk about is I think I'm going to send this out to Maelstrom because you're in the midst of doing this right now. We talked a bit about you just played 50 games with a single caster, and you were talking about how you kind of regret doing that. So how do you feel like you're going forward? How are you going to sort of shake the ghosts of Mark II off and start fresh? Do you have are you going in with a plan, or are you just going to kind of just play the game and enjoy it?
I'm just going to kind of play the game and enjoy it. I'm going to try to play as many casters as I can and try as many different lists as I can, see what I enjoy playing.
I just find something that clicks for you
Yeah.
and move on. That's
Yeah.
that's admirable. That I think that's the best way to go. I think a lot of people are waiting for those net deck lists to hit so they could start playing what the big minds, the big theory crafters are theory crafting. I'm not really doing that.
No,
to
me
an
neither.
extent.
I'm having more fun just throwing together all the janky things I can find just to see how awful they are.
Yeah, and my tactic is really going to be I want to do battle boxes for a while just because I want to learn the caster basics. Now, I'm going to lose a lot because I'm playing Troll Battle Box right now, and apparently it's good, but I haven't figured it out yet. And I'm looking forward to getting back into Mercs. I'm really looking forward to the theory crafting list that I put together with Bart and a couple of galleons, and really rocking that out for a little while. I know it's a jank list, and there's an easy solution for it, but I just want to enjoy it for a while. And to be honest, I'm not getting to play as many tournaments now that I'm doing mostly announcing at tournaments. So why not just have a good time playing the game and learn as many characters as I can? Mm-hmm. What about you, Bubba?
I actually, Maelstrom said it well. He's just kind of like looking to have fun. So what I did, and what I think a lot of people should do, is this is a great time to experiment, play weird things, play different things. Try everything out that you have. It's like that one thing that has been collecting dust. Maybe it's really good now. You don't know. You haven't seen it. There's so many different synergies that didn't exist before that maybe no one has seen yet, even, or that you don't see. So like I said, I've played 15 games or so. I played a tournament with the same caster pair twice, and then every other game was a different Khador caster, including ones that I'd never played before. So I played Zerkova 1. I played Strakov. So I've played Butcher 1. I just played I played Karchev for the first time. So there's Karchev, Strakov, and Zerkova 1 I'd never played before.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm just going to try them out and see how it goes.
Karchev kind of scares me.
Weird lists. The Karchev game was good. He's really good now.
All right, guys, that's a good round table. We could literally wax philosophical about this for an hour, but it's time for the lightning round. All right, we put together 9 mediocrely difficult questions about War Machine and one ridiculously complex one.
Thanks, Minty.
This evening, I wanted to up the game a little bit. I think
I got a little too close to winning last week.
I think it got a little bit too close to Maelstrom being able to win. So I've made the questions a little bit more difficult this week.
Damn it.
So we're going to start. You guys all know the rules. If you're watching it live, you can try to answer as fast as you can in the chat. There is a bit of a delay, so that won't actually give anybody here the answer. If you're playing here in the room or you're Bubba Dalton, you just have to give the either a bing bong or
bing bong,
or the wah, whatever, make a noise, and then I'll give you first crack at it. If you're watching this in the video, just give us as many answers as you can and tell us how you did. So, question number 1: what is the full name of the caster known as Sorsha 2?
Bing bong.
Bubba Dalton.
Forward Commander Sorsha Krakatov.
That is absolutely correct. Other than the Krakatov, she's just forward commander. I don't mean maybe that is her last name. I'll have to look that up now.
I don't know how to say it. But
I might give you a bonus point just because of that. Question number 2. Who is the Blessing of Vengeance bonded to?
Bing bong.
Bubba Dalton.
Krios 2.
No. Severus.
Oh.
Question number 3.
Sucks.
What is the animus of the Scarsfell Griffin in Mark III?
Ooh.
Animus of the Scarsfell Griffin. Gentlemen? All right, time's
I don't
out.
know anymore.
It's elusive. So the score is still 0-0-2 for Bubba Dalton. Question number 4. Can you change facing and still aim?
Ding.
George.
No.
No, you cannot. No.
You have to give up all of your movement-y.
There is no change. Yeah, that's something that new players should. I've seen a lot of players go, okay, change my facing, and I aim. So, no, you can't do that. Question number 5. What does RAT stand for? On the card, not just...
Oh. Bing bong.
George.
Ranged attack.
Ranged attack. All right, it's 2-2. George versus Bubba. It's coming down to the wire.
I only have one.
No, you're right.
Shut up.
I was going to give you a bonus point.
I'm Canadian. I don't cheat.
So are we. I mean, so continue right along. So question number 6. What are the written benefits and penalties of rubble terrain type?
Ooh.
Bing bong.
Bubba Dalton.
Well within 1 inch you gain cover, and it is rough terrain when trying to move through it.
That is absolutely correct. So now we're tied. All All right, question number 7. Other than Maelstrom, who's taking a break over there. He's
Was something
taking
going
a
on
nap. All right,
He's crying. He's crying about Mail.
About to refuge.
I'm only really good now. Question number 7. What is the range of Gristle Bloodsong's weapon, Resounder?
Bing bong.
Go for
8.
it. No, it's 1 inch. It's his melee. It's her melee.
Stop. Melee weapon.
Ah,
Sorry. I knew it was the melee weapon. I just couldn't remember if it had
I
reach.
couldn't remember if it was 1 or 2.
Yeah, I know. I was doing the
That
same
was
thing.
that was nice.
I'm still in the range.
You were like, I'm on this
It's
shit.
a ranged attack. It says range. No.
Question number 8.
Damn it.
Name 2 of the 4 advantages on Iris 2's card.
Like
Under
the
her
stat-
stat
the
line.
little-
Under her stat
little
line, she
circles.
gets 4 advantages. That's what those advantages are. Not on her weapons, just underneath her stats. What are
Bing bong.
Go for it, Bubba.
Stealth, Pathfinder.
Stealth Pathfinder. I would have also accepted Advanced Deploy and Assault. She now
Ooh,
has
she has
Assault.
assault?
I know, right? That's
Dirty.
friggin'
No,
rigged.
she's not good enough.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't good
dirty.
enough, they now let her just do both. All right, question number 9. How many inches does Deceptively Mobile allow an Archangel
Bing
to
bong.
move?
5.
Bing
Bubba,
bong.
that's
Bing bong.
wrong. It's
Bing bong.
3.
God damn it! I was trying to bing bong.
I'm sorry. I was going to give that one to you anyway because you were going to say 3, right?
Yeah.
All right, we'll give you 1 point.
I've actually used the Archangel in Mark 3.
I
With
said
Lilith
5 and I was
3.
like, that was stupid. It's
That was
3.
damn it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, question number 10. This is the minty fresh question of the week. Which Lich Lords gained field marshal abilities in Mark 3?
Like all
Bing
of
bong.
them?
Which Lich Lords?
The Lich Lord Overseers.
Which Lich Lords? Do you have?
Yeah, but like
that. So George, you're just going to add the Overseers. That's your answer.
Yeah, the big noodly guys.
so Scavarus, Venethrax. I think it's just those 2.
It's actually Asphyxius 3 and Venethrax.
Oh.
And you have to specify Asphyxius 3 because he did not become a Lich Lord until his third iteration. Scar is also not a Lich Lord in any of the versions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that there was the lightning round. I'm going to give this one to Bubba, mainly because you really screwed that up in the end.
With
there.
the Overseer, with his
No,
noodly
it's not the
appendages.
damn Overseer. Just give up. On the
Yep.
The Overseer.
All right, so
He's got 3
I'm going to
heads.
send this over to PG Semi-Auto Magic. What events do we have coming up in the Ottawa meta?
Well, if you're in the area this weekend, a bunch of us are getting in vehicles and heading down to Kingston. Their full Steam event is finally happening because Pure Later finally found the boxes for Nexus.
Ooh.
Yeah, so we're going to invade the meta, and as always, we're
Steal all the prize support.
hopefully we're taking Chris Aubin and Mike Bilak because those are the 2 that Mike just wins all their crap, and Chris Aubin is preternaturally lucky. So between the 2 of them, we should be able to take away all their prizing.
I've played against
That's
Alvin.
nice.
That's true.
That's true.
After that, the next big thing is the World Ender, the final World Ender. So if you don't have your golden ticket yet, get on to the
Nice.
Wizard's Tower on the 31st. And,
I don't have mine yet.
And then you should be
Come to the
getting over
Wizard's
here.
Tower, Bubba. You could just
I haven't been to a single World Ender.
Oh, Bubba!
I think Mark Andre has his, so you could just come in and.
Yeah, MA has his. Come on,
Whatever.
even Chandler was up here a couple weeks ago. So, come on, you can get up here. So we got the World Ender coming up, and then in August we have Capital City Bloodbath. It's going to be huge. Get in there. It's 3 days of War Machine, Iron Arena, first Mark III. Who's the boss? It's a catered event, so all you have to do is show up. We have all the room in the world in between tables. There's water on the table at the beginning of every round. It's a tournament that I would want to go to.
And some people might be a little bit turned off by the ticket price. They've been like, "Oh my God, $80!"
It is kind of a surprise. It's an $80 ticket for a 2-day event, but you gotta bank into that.
That gets your food. That
Yeah.
gets 3 days of gaming. It gets you into all of the events.
Yeah,
You're gonna have a good
and
time.
you don't have to worry that you're just buying a ticket for the Masters for $80 for 1 day because you're gonna scrub out. That ticket is good for both days and the Eaton and the Iron Arena. And if you don't make it into the top 8 for the Masters, it gets you into the Who's the Boss the second day. And remember, it is a War Machine weekend, not a ticket qualifier.
It's a points event.
But it's a points event. So if you don't have your ticket by August, which a lot of people don't, you want to get those points.
So
Yeah, like it can't be like people will be like $80. Oh, like you know how much food? Think of just how much food you would buy
In a 3-day period.
Yeah.
at a War Machine. Like
At
you're
least
basically paying for food and then playing War Machine for free.
Yeah.
if you added booze to that, I would totally agree with you.
Yeah.
That'd be then I would pay $300.
Okay, do you know how much food George and I eat?
That's
at a
my
War Machine
Friday
event.
night.
look at the two of it. Look at Bubba and I. We put those paces out of business.
I'm working on it. I'm catching up to you guys. I swear to God.
So that's what's coming up until August. We have a lot more stuff coming up in sort of the new season going into fall, but I'm going to keep those under wraps for right now.
Bubba, what do you got going on around your?
just-
Anything exciting going on?
Yeah, absolutely. August 27th at the Dragon in Guelph, Ontario, is the WTC team is hosting a 5-man team tournament. 12 team max. We already have 10 teams prepaid, pre-registered. So there are 2 slots left. The WTC guys are splitting up. We are not playing together. We are forming our own team of minions. Mine is especially humorous. So it's a 5-man team event. It's $100 per team, so it's $20 a guy. There are 2 slots left. There's a Facebook group about it. If you just search like WTC team tournament or something like that. So there's 2 slots left. It'll be super, super fun. There's going to be tons of prizing WTC stuff. I can't remember exactly what it is. There'll be a raffle as well. So that'll be really sweet.
And if you can't make it to that event, I would encourage everybody to go and buy the WTC widget kit. It is an amazing thing to have. If you're a new player and you're thinking about what are the bits that I need, or if you're like the rest of us and are now collecting widgets, then totally grab that kit because it supports our guys going across the seas, and it's so good to have.
It's almost become like almost a necessity in War Machine,
especially with pre-measuring now. Those
like all the 2-inch
amazing.
melee and all that stuff. It's really hard to get down there and measure with a tape measure in between the models. And also in the land of pre-measuring, if you want to really measure out that charge or where your model's going to be, a widget's that's super sweet. But there is other stuff coming for WTC. I sent George a picture before. I don't know if he has it. Whatever. He can post it later. Of some shirts that we're working on. This is not the final version, but just some T-shirts for everyone if they want to buy them, support the team. They'll be about $30. That's so we can make a couple bucks. But $30 for a T-shirt, it's gonna be sweet. It's gonna have the Moose Goose logo on it. It's gonna say Canada. It's gonna say A on it. That kind of stuff. So that's gonna be really cool. That should be coming out. Hopefully, I'll have that rolling next week to take orders. So that'll be super sweet. Other than that, I don't really have any tournaments going on.
Awesome.
I don't need to go anywhere. I'm good.
You got it all. Well, we're lucky here. We got it all going on here. Unfortunately, if
Those shirt pics are, by the way, on the Moose Machine Facebook page right now, even for you live people.
So so there's not much going on in the actual Elmont meta, but if you are in and around Elmont, please join us at the good old Barley Mouth for our regular Monday Night Fest. You did miss the biggest party of the year, which was super sweet, and that's pretty much it for us tonight. Maelstrom, do you feel like that was a successful show for you?
It was okay.
Yeah. do I need to talk to you more? Is that?
No, it's fine.
Does Ringo?
Are you
Ringo,
still upset that I didn't talk to you at the Sioux?
That's
that
what it is. It's because it's Bubba, right?
Well,
he was so mad at me. He was so mad at me that I didn't.
I was like,
he's
hey,
like,
Bubba.
oh, hey, Bubba. And I was just like,
he was like,
hey,
who the fuck
person
are
I don't
you?
know. And just like
Snubbed.
kept on walking.
Snubbed like a noob.
I can't remember what I was
I'm
doing.
totally
but I was
making myself
apparently
a
very
Ringo
busy.
shirt.
I was probably low on chocolate.
I think that when you make our next bunch of T-shirts and you put the
Put
names on it,
Ringo
just
on
put
it.
Ringo on yours. Yeah. Let me tell you about this song I'm writing about the octopus in his garden.
It's a good garden.
All right, I'm gonna go write Hey Jude, and you go write some other really important. Anyway,
What's your
so
thoughts on Ragman?
That's it for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna let this whole thing end. We did hit the death clock just a couple of minutes ago because we did start about 5 minutes late. Thank you everybody for joining us. Remember, if you're looking for War Machine stuff online and you're Canadian and you just can't find it anywhere, go check out our buddies over at Wizards Tower. They're the ones that make our show work. And they're the ones that keep the lights on, as our friend Manoth John would say, and they really actually do. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without their support. So
they pay my electric bill.
They pay your electric bill now, yeah. That's how big this podcast is. We fill our beds full of dollar loonies. It's really uncomfortable.
It hurts.
And we roll in them, our ill-gotten podcast dollars. But
I don't know how the duck does it, man.
So, go over to the Wizards Tower. That's where we buy our stuff because they do a one stock of everything. You can get your stuff online, and I believe there's free shipping within most of Canada. So check them out. And other than that, come visit us at any of our local events. George is always there. I try to be there as often as I can. We will be announcing live from a couple events coming up, mainly the Bloodbath. And we're hoping to be there for the Ontario Team Challenge this year. So that's it from us here at the Death Clock. Dice down. Dice down! Moose Machine and This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes is a proud part of the Muse on Minis network. Podcasts go online every Thursday morning. You can watch the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch and keep in touch with us on our Facebook page. Just Google Moose Machine. If you can't find us, you're doing the internet wrong.